And we are back. It is Wednesday night. We're on the road. I've got a funeral tomorrow. So I'm up here out of state. I won't say where it is. So not the regular setting for Wednesday night, but we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So I didn't want to miss it. The markets are, man, I don't know. I don't know if you guys are paying attention or not. I think that you are. If you're watching the stuff that I've been talking about, it is lining up like gangbusters. So Monday night, we went over it. We said, hey, look, I think oil is going to be the catalyst that causes Japan to have to raise interest rates. And we've now seen in the past 48 hours, the Strait of Hormuz has been shut down again. And we've seen oil refineries in Russia struck. So if you could create the perfect storm and pressure on Russia, Japan, and the BRICS nations and everybody else to move here, we got it. We haven't seen oil spike to the levels that I think we're going to. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer for things to move. But, I mean, we saw 80 yesterday here in the U.S., back down a little bit today. A lot of people shorting it. But I don't think that's going to last long. I think that we are going to see yen priced in oil continue to move higher. The final piece that could be kind of like the nail in the coffin that I don't know is going to happen or not, just to be clear here. But if they really did want to force Japan to have to move before their meeting on the 30th and the 31st of this month, which I do think is very likely, if the U.S. were to decide that we could no longer supply oil to them because our oil reserves are too low, that would do it. They would be backed into a corner. You would see yen versus crude spike. Their inflation in their economy would be too high, and they would effectively have to react and raise interest rates. Could they continue to eke things along through the end of this week and maybe even next? Maybe. It feels like they're timing this for something. I don't know what it's timed for. I posted over there on Twitter earlier today that I feel like I'm watching a slow motion train crash. Because I see it, like I've been watching it happen. I know where it's headed. I know where this leads, but it's taking a lot longer than I think I would like, or anybody else that is watching would like. And that's okay. I want it to be the right timing. I want to make sure they've been very methodical in everything that's transpired since August of 2024 when this first started to unwind. They've put a lot of different things in place. The most prominent piece and most important, in my opinion, is the Genius Act. If we did not have stablecoin regulation here in the U.S. and a way to be able to drive demand domestically for these treasuries when they're inevitably unloaded, when all of this unwinds, you'd have a financial collapse. The bond market is the backbone of the current financial system, and if there was something there that blows up, it's game over. If people lose trust in, the BIS designation that U.S. Treasuries are riskless, and we were to default, that would be catastrophic. Especially that since the rest of the world has decided to peg their currency to the U.S. dollar since Bretton Woods in 1944. So we need to revamp all of that. They've talked about Bretton Woods 3.0. Judy Sheldon and many others have advocated for gold-backed currencies, moving back to a gold-backed currency in a cryptocurrency type of way, or gold-backed system in a cryptocurrency type of way. That is where I think we are headed. We have the goal to do so. It's not in Fort Knox, in my opinion. I don't know that. I think a lot of people would probably agree on that topic. But all that being said, I'm in a really good mood. I think we're right on the precipice of things moving. I know I've said that for a long time, but we've never had the lineup of stuff that we've got right now. So just to go over that real quick before we get into the questions. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday night to come hang out with me, ask great questions. If you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share, do all the fun stuff. It does help the algorithm get the message out to more people if you find it valuable. So back to where we're at. The 10-year yield over there in Japan is currently sitting at almost 2.9. Told you guys at 3%, it really becomes unserviceable. Their yen continues to depreciate against the dollar. I haven't seen if they've intervened today. It didn't look like they had earlier. I'll actually pull that up here and see where we're at this very moment while I'm recording this. Currently sit at 162.47, around 162.5. Not good. Over 162, which is what they defended over and over and over again. So they're going to have to do something to intervene here. Goldman Sachs came out and said that they think it's going to get to 165. Could they let it drift that far? Maybe. The only other thing that could happen that would slow this down would be the U.S. coming out and lowering interest rates first. But that would also cause a squeeze because U.S. Treasuries would no longer be paying as much. So that rotation might start to happen. If people felt like Japan was also going to raise at the next meeting, which people do, if we were to lower interest rates, people would start to, because markets are 6 month, forward facing. What people believe is going to happen in the next 6 months, they price in today. So if they believed over the next 6 month period that Japan's bonds would trade higher than U.S. bonds, they would start to rotate to be able to get that upswing, right? So that's the only wild card here that the U.S. could throw in this if we had an emergency meeting and we lowered interest rates. But I think even then the spread tightens between Japanese bonds and our returns, and we see the unwind happen anyway. If they don't unwind, or if they don't raise rates in Japan, their currency is going to continue to depreciate. They're going to move into hyperinflation, which will look great on their stock market, but the cost of living for people there is going to be significantly more expensive. And they're going to protect their currency. That's what all central banks do. So they are going to have to raise interest rates at some point. Many of those at the Bank of Japan have already come out and said that they need to be around 2%. They've projected that they will be methodical in that, raising 25 basis points at the next 4 meetings or the next 6 meetings, however you want to put it out there. If oil spikes like I think it's going to, they're going to be backed into a corner where they have to move. And then we get the full rollout of everything that I've been talking about. And a lot of people are saying, it's dead, it's a dead theory, this, that, or the other. I mean, I've been pretty on point with a lot of the calls that I've made. I'm not perfect. I have a good batting average. So I'm confident that the perfect storm does play out, that we do see significantly higher prices for XRP. That's probably a good time for my other disclaimer, which is none of this is financial advice. It's all for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always speak with a tax professional, an attorney, a financial advisor before making any tax, legal, or financial decisions. The opinions I state here are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. Some of the people that work for us have a high conviction similar to mine. Other people are much more conservative. And if you go speak with them, they're going to make sure that you're prepared for all scenarios, which is what you want when you're working with these type of professionals, right? So if that's something you're interested in, if you do believe things are going to move and escalate quickly, you want to start to get things in position, be proactive, you can go over there to digitalfamilyoffice.io and get started today, talk to our team, and they'll help you out. Okay. So I do have some super chats from Monday that I did miss. So I'm going to jump into those, and then we'll get into the ones tonight. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out to come listen to me. This is wild to see as many people care about my opinion as do. So thank y'all. We've got, first one says legend. Appreciate you. Trump's crypto holdings were made public for the public last week. No XRP. Your thoughts? Also, Bitcoin crypto reserve was discussed by Trump's admin today, and no XRP was discussed. Your thoughts? I will say this. Trump and his family and many others are wealthy because they take advantage of opportunities while they exist. I'm a bit more methodical and risk adverse than that, which actually seems kind of counterintuitive because I come on here and talk about crypto, right? Like we're in the industry, we manage $1 billion in crypto. And this is the same thing with the institutions. They are going to position themselves where the liquidity currently is and where the opportunity is in the short term. They're more of a trader mindset when it comes to crypto versus long-term investments. And I think Trump and his family are the same way. There was the meme coin. They have World Liberty Financial. They have their new stable coin that they've launched. It's a picks and shovels play for them, but it's also, hey, cut hay while the sun's shining, right? $1.4 billion is what, I don't know if Trump specifically himself or his family has made in crypto. The majority of that's actually off of royalties. Because, they asked Trump about it. And he was like, wow, I didn't realize we even made that much money. Using the Trump name, I found this out just recently, that the way that they've orchestrated that arrangement is they get a royalty first before there's any other payouts to shareholders, because of them using the Trump name on their stuff. So this is a lesson for me and also for you guys. If you do have a strong brand, if you have really the strong brand is really what it comes down to, and you could license that to other people, obviously your name and reputation matters. So you don't want to put that into positions that could compromise the trust that's been built on it or credibility that you've established. But at the same time, if you structured it the right way and it is with, credible counterparties, that can be very lucrative. I had never heard of anybody structuring something where they got the pref, 30% off the top as a royalty before shareholders were paid out. But kudos to them for being able to do that because of the brand that Trump has, right? Not a whole lot of people are going to be able to negotiate something like that. But all that being said, I did get to speak to Eric Trump when we were at SALT last year. Got to talk to him a little bit about what we do. And just because Trump himself doesn't hold XRP does not mean that his family members or trusts or other things that they have established doesn't have an allocation to XRP. So just keep that in mind. And again, that's what we also help people do. We work with a lot of family offices and affluent individuals that want to get assets out of their taxable state or out of their name into other structures that are longstanding and can preserve the wealth or protect it from creditors and mitigate taxes and do a lot of other things with it versus holding it in your personal name. Second to that, you asked about the crypto reserve for Bitcoin. Again, I think that's just kind of the topic of the day. We are in a place in time where, and I think there's this misconception too. I think because of the allure of some of the riddles and other stuff in this community, if you're around for XRP and understand all that piece, there's going to be people that watch this that have no idea what that is. But there's some lore around this where things have kind of been foretold. And because of that, I think there's an assumption that everybody that's on the inside's in on this and they all know what's going on. Most have no idea, no clue. I have talked to people that I thought would have a really good handle on things based on their involvement in the lawsuit and other things. And maybe they put on a show for me and just, downplayed things, which is also possible. But I have strong opinions about things. And when I stated certain stuff, they seemed apprehensive to those outcomes. But I've also talked to other ones that were very much aligned with that. So anyway, all that to say, I think people feel like Trump or the people in the White House or David Sachs or these other people all know exactly what's going on. I think different people know different pieces. There are very few people that have been able to put the pieces together, if that makes sense. You wouldn't want, even if it was a government intelligence deal, you wouldn't want one counterparty or one unit or one person or liability to have all of the information to be able to assess something. Even the president may not know everything that's going on. And they shouldn't. Also, like if you look at large corporations, you appoint heads of different departments. You have a chief financial officer or chief operating officer. The person that's the executive helps make the hard decisions and solves the problems that other people can't solve. But the rest of the team works together and hopefully is cohesive in order to be able to solve things that don't have to get to the executive level or the board level in a corporation. So I kind of view the cabinet the same way. Trump's appointed many people to the cabinet, and I think they all know different components and different pieces, and they're working that out, how that all plays together. So anyway, circling back to the question at hand, why is there no XRP reserve yet? Once the liquidity moves there, and it's very apparent that that's going to be a scarce resource and also a position of power to own a significant amount of XRP. From what I've seen, they also haven't done a full government audit. David Sachs, when Trump first came into office, he literally came out and said there's been no full crypto audit of the U.S. government and what they actually own. And to date, I have seen no release of that either. Bitcoin is the nice shiny thing that's expensive that a lot of people view as rare and valuable. I have somewhat of that sentiment. I have concerns about quantum and some other things. But I'm more of a realist when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Even when I talk to family offices and other high net worth individuals that are looking to make an allocation, I let them know up front that all of this is still completely speculative, Bitcoin included. There is no real tangible value. These assets aren't being used. The bets that you're making in the market, if you are investing in it, because that's what they are bets. They are not for sure things. There are certain things that I personally feel a certain way about. You guys know that. But if you're coming into this market and just looking at it objectively, this technology hasn't been adopted yet. There are no clear, this is how this specific asset is going to be used. So you're making bets, educated guesses on which networks and tokens are going to see the most liquidity move into them in order to be able to facilitate whatever use case you believe they are going to facilitate. So I think that's why they're focused on Bitcoin. It makes headlines. There's a lot of people that are invested in it. 1 in 5 people in the U.S. own crypto, and most of that's Bitcoin. If you look at XRP's total wallets, we're just now at 8 million total wallets globally. So I don't know what the percentage on that is, but it's very small. If there's 8 billion people on the planet and there's only 8 million wallets, it's a very 0.00001, something like that, percent of the population even has a XRP wallet. And you could imagine the majority of those are people that have multiple wallets. It's not like each wallet is just one person. So that even further consolidates how many people actually have an allocation to this, or corporations or other large entities, which also make up a large majority of the wallets as well. So all that to say, I think once we see some significant price appreciation, the conversation is going to shift to, we just happen to have this deal that might have been cut with Ripple a long time ago from Greg Kidd in 2014 with the Fed when they met with them, and maybe they'll be able to exercise their option contract on the XRP at that point, which would also sit off their balance sheet until they exercise that options contract. So anyway, I'm rambling on here. We got one more, and then we'll jump into the super chats tonight. We got Tim, my man. That was the first one, I think. Appreciate you, Tim. He's in the mastermind, Carbon One member. Good to see you, dude. Fast Chevelle, he says, and I'm sorry if I missed any of your other super chats the other night. I think I got to them, but we've got one more here. It says, Carbon One mastermind. Glad to see you. 2% holder, 60 years old, married. After price appreciation, single LLC, onboarded when qualify. Want to include my two sons. They're in their mid-20s. Great relationship to eventually take over everything. How to include them so they get income and benefit from price appreciation. Thank you for everything that you do. You've changed my life and my family's life for the better. We're forever grateful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. A lot of people kind of throw shade sometimes, and I'm here to be a beacon of hope for people. A lot of people lose hope and they don't feel like they can ever get to a better spot. And I do believe that this is an opportunity that will provide that. Again, you should make your own choices, listen to a bunch of people. I'm not the end all be all, but to be on the list of people that people are listening to is cool on my side. Back to the question, two sons in their 20s. So there's a couple different ways that you could orchestrate this. You could do holding company. I probably would. I would probably do a holding company, an LLC. I would gift them small amount of equity units in that LLC. I wouldn't necessarily hold any crypto in that corporation. You might even do like a family limited partnership if they're going to contribute cash. And you might even do a C Corp later on this way in order for them to be able to take over and manage things later. The assets themselves, it sounds like you've done a good job. You've set up an LLC. You probably want to structure some type of trust that you gift that into. And then the management of that LLC would be manager managed, not member managed. And you would set up the C Corp as the managing member, or you could do another LLC as the managing member. And that would be where they either had equity units or stock in that corporation. You'd probably want to do an LLC just for the pass-through benefits and the taxation there. You could do a C Corp depending on how much money you're making for the management of these assets later on. Work with your tax attorney, work with your estate planner to navigate that one. In the short term, I would think LLC would be ideal, mainly for creditor protection. If they are going to be taking that over and you are going to be rolling cash up there, it's also going to be passed through as a partnership or a family limited partnership. So talk with your estate planner. That would be the way that I would think about it. Or you could structure it through the trust. I don't know how much involvement they want. I don't know how much financial education they had. If they are good stewards, if they understand what's going to happen, if they understand what to do with it, though that all plays a role. If they don't have the financial expertise in order to navigate this correctly post price appreciation, and you're concerned about that, you could just have them as beneficiaries on the trust. And you could structure that in a way where there's a spendthrift provision in there where they're not able to take anything from the original principal. It would only be dividends or returns that are generated off that original principal that would be dispersed to them based on, the specifications that you outline in that trust, that irrevocable trust. So, there's kind of two different ways. There's probably more than that to go about it, to be honest with you. Those are just the two that come to the top of my mind on how to orchestrate things. If they do have a good head on their shoulders, they have good financial education, they understand how to manage money. And again, we talk about a financial committee and a family board and separating operations of management of the money from the family, because oftentimes, I don't know how close they are. It sounds like they have a great relationship today. Money also does change things on that front for people. That's not fun. People don't want to talk about that. I'll give you all an example on that one before we move on here. We put out a newsletter. We have a Substack. If you guys don't follow that, I would encourage you to. A lot of good content over there. If we post a cool video or have something coming up, we put it in there, but most of it's educational. I had a gentleman reach out to me that is a mediator for wealthy families. He was an attorney, and he was representing one of the sons in a lawsuit against the other one. Their father had built up, it was large, like $300 or $400 million real estate portfolio. And he did not put things together in the trust in a way that one brother could buy the other one out if they didn't have any interest in it. There was no way to finance that, which are all things that you want to think through, right? Because your children aren't always, one might want one thing and another one may want something else. And at different points in their life, that could be flip-flopped, right? Just depends on where they are and what they're doing and what their interests are. And people tend to operate from self-interest if they weren't brought up around one another and taught to steward the capital and that this is the family's money, not your money, right? So they both inherited it. One brother wanted to continue to run it. There was no buyout provision in there. The other brother wanted to sell it and take the cash and take the tax hit and move on. They got into a big fight about that. And I think it ended up, the only ones that win in that situation are the attorneys. They're getting paid for as long as it drags out. If it's 3 to 5 years to settle everything and drag each other through the mud and ruin your relationship with your brother, the only ones that get paid and really make the money are the attorneys. And then at the end of it, you're saddled with a bunch of taxes. And I think they did end up having to sell that entire real estate portfolio and piece it out. They didn't get, it was a fire sale on a lot of stuff. They didn't get the total value that they should have from it. It was not good. But back to this situation, you want to have thought through those contingencies. You want to understand if there are differences of opinion. Is there a third party that can sit and think objectively that doesn't have skin in the game that can help mediate the situation? Are there buyout provisions if somebody wants out for whatever reason? Are there other clauses in there that exclude somebody from participating if they don't participate in a particular manner? You want to think through all of those things. And if you're working with a good estate planner, they're going to tell you that stuff. And you might think today, like you said, you have a great relationship with your sons. They're happy. They're in their mid-20s. They could get married and have kids. They could grow apart. One of their wives could get in their ear. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody here. It could be two women and their spouse gets in their ear. It could be a man that got in their ear. You want to have prenups in place. There's just a lot of things. If you really are going to protect this and you want your family to be a steward over the long term, that we help families do, bringing their children up. Your kids are a bit further along than that. So probably one of those two options. But again, make sure that you're thinking through all the different potential outcomes and conflicts that may take place. All right. We have drug this on for 30 minutes before we even got into the super chats tonight. I am probably going to cut it a little short tonight, just to be candid with you guys. Like I said, I got to be up early for a funeral tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and dive in here. Too Many Dans, good to see you, dude. He says, legend. Looks like we're seeing oil spike as you predicted. Yen bonds are rising. Will they make it to the weekend, or will we get out that will they get out that dented can? I don't know. I wish I had a clear answer for you. Could they drag this out further? Sure. I think they're timing this for something. I don't know what they're timing it for. We still need oversight from the OCC and guidance on stable coins, and then the banks will roll out. And they may be, again, being very methodical about this, making sure that that's in place prior to them allowing this to unwind so that the bond market is for sure stabilized. Could they rush it through in a situation? Sure. Congress comes back Monday as well on the 13th. They have a couple weeks before August recess to hopefully get the Clarity Act passed. Still not overly optimistic on that unless there is a significant catalyst that moves that along, which, again, would love to be wrong. I'm an advocate for the Clarity Act. I was literally on Capitol Hill the weekend that it got passed through the House, and we got the Genius Act through the Senate, and it became signed into law last summer, almost more than a year ago, actually. And I told you guys all in 2025, I don't think the Clarity Act is going to get passed this year. And I'm telling you now, there's a lot of headwinds for the Clarity Act. But I want to point out that Monday is also the 3-year anniversary for XRP having clarity here in the U.S. from Judge Torres and the Ripple versus the SEC suit. Is there a there? We also had Brad come out today talking about the partnership with University of Kansas out there. They've got the XRP logo on their jerseys, which was pretty cool to see. Is there some riddles or I don't know. I have no idea. There could be a there. But if you wanted to put the tinfoil hat on, and again, tinfoil hat does not meet reality most of the time. Just want to be specific about that. But if you wanted to put the tinfoil hat on, all the riddles and BG and all the stuff, the common theme for that is 1, 2, 3. And this will be the 1, 2, 3 third year since clarity happened for XRP back in 2023. So are they lining it up for Monday? I don't know. I do think we need Evernorth. We need a BlackRock ETF. We need the OCC's guidance on stablecoins. We need Japan to raise interest rates. Those are kind of the 4 things that I'm looking at. Could all those things happen in the next 2 days? Sure. Could it take much longer than that? Well, it can't take a whole lot longer than that because the OCC has until the 18th of this month to issue that guidance. So are they going to wait to the last minute? We got 10 days for them to issue that guidance. You also have the DTCC going live on Monday, supposedly, with tokenization of stocks in their beta. And it's a day 1 implementation. They've said that. And I told you guys, if you've watched the programming from Swell last year, you saw Monica Long interview the president of NASDAQ, and she said specifically the first place before tokenized stocks that we're going to be implementing distributed ledger technology is for the back-end reconciliation, which has already happened, and settlement, which is the piece that we need for XRP. Okay. So we'll see what happens in the next 5 days here, 10 days here. But the stars are aligning based on, what you just mentioned here with oil spiking and the 10-year over there in Japan continuing to rise. Steel City Flooring. Good to see you. Thank you for the super chat. They say, Jake, Carbon One member, top 2%. I'm 37. 2 kids, God willing. 2 more. Congratulations, dude. It's good to have a big family. He says, followers of Christ, as of recent struggling with possibly investing in this digital prison eventually. Possible mark of the beast. Any advice, thoughts? God bless you and your family. I've also struggled with that concept. If you, again, I don't mean to make it religious, but I have a strong belief. I pray consistently. I don't make it my platform, but he brought it up, so I'm going to give it to you. I do think that's where we're headed. The only way that the meek are going to inherit the earth, and that's going to come true, is if we have a stake in this deal. And we have a large enough stake that we have say-so, so that we can keep the things that we know we don't want to happen from happening. So I view what I'm doing and what we're doing in our corporation a key piece of that. We have a large enough position that we become a player at the table, and we can advocate on your behalf and everybody else that's our client's behalf to navigate this and make sure that there are guardrails put in place so that we don't get those outcomes, even though the good book says it's inevitable, right? And I think it's wild to me, but 95% of the people that I have ever talked to that have invested in XRP in particular, not necessarily crypto, but XRP in particular, are God-fearing people. And they have strong beliefs around stuff on that side. And I think that they feel called to have a position to be able to advocate on his behalf as all this goes down. And you could also go deep on the Knights Templar and like a lot of things that exemplify XRP. So that's how I've made peace with it. Is I believe, you can't win being on your back foot if you're not at the table, if you're not in the room, if you don't have a say so. I had this conversation with my dad before he passed away, which I'll, if you've heard this before, I don't mean to belabor it, but it's meaningful to me. He was upset with the world. He said, look, you need to get off Facebook. You need to call your congressman. And I told him, that's not going to make a change. It's not going to matter. You didn't lobby for your congressman. You didn't invest in Meta. You're not a board member, not a shareholder. Your one account on their platform doesn't mean diddly to them. They can replace you with a bot. And your congressman isn't going to listen to a word you say because you have no impact. You have no reach. You have no credibility. You have no network. You have no clout or net worth that's going to impact his ability to win the seat next year. This gives you at least a start on that, if not much more. And when you have, I don't want to say power, that's not necessarily the right term, but like leverage, you have some leverage in those conversations. You can actually make an impact, if not for the globe, at least for your small community. And so that's what I'm hoping for people with this. I think that you will have some say so. And I think good people like yourself need seats at the table to make sure that this is navigated correctly. So great question. God bless you and your family. And appreciate you hopping in the chat. Ron, they say, hey, Jake, sir, listening from day one to your content. Thank you, man. Thank you for all the support. And like I said, it's wild to me to have so many cool people that care what I have to say. So I really do appreciate it. So greetings from Ireland. It's late there, my man. Thank you for hanging out. When could us Europeans start benefiting from your services? Is there a wide market for you here as well? Yes. So we can currently work with Europeans. If you have an entity structured in Cyprus or Cayman or BVI or Jordan or Isle of Man or Nevis or Switzerland, Luxembourg, like all of those work. Or you can work with us as an individual. We can onboard individuals over there at Anchorage. We have about 13% of our client base is international, and we don't have the best of partners globally yet. We have a very strong outlook and roadmap on what we want to do and accomplish over the next 2 years for expanding globally. I think we may end up on more of a licensing model where we understand the regulation. We understand we're a capital backer. We put you in a position where maybe you have the network and expertise and maybe some licenses in a certain jurisdiction, but don't have the reach or the credibility that would be required to move into this space in a meaningful way. And you probably have, the understanding on the tax side and the estate side to be able to help people navigate that, but you just don't have a broad distribution base. That's what we think we can bring to the table, and we want to partner with strategic people in different jurisdictions in order to be able to facilitate that, because there are a lot of people outside the U.S. that I think would benefit significantly from the expertise of people in their region that do understand this. They just don't know who they are. So that's the game plan. It's subject to change. We could try to build this out in every single jurisdiction globally, but it'll probably be in hubs in the EU. Probably Luxembourg, Switzerland would be where we would look to set something up. Maybe Ireland. Ireland's also a hotbed over there. So we'll just have to see how things play out. That is a little bit further down the roadmap than Dubai and Singapore or Southeast Asia. So, mid to late 2027 is kind of when we would be looking at that region or that area. But that's not to say, again, that we can't work with you today. If you're looking for the wealth management services in particular, we're happy to help facilitate on that side, help protect your assets and have beneficiaries on the account, segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured up to $100 million. You get all those same protections. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. So as long as you're not a terrorist, which it doesn't seem like you are, as long as you can pass OFAC, BIS, KYC, KYB, all that stuff, we're happy to work with people. Rick Johnson, there he is. He said, remember to say I have no info and I'm not pushing anything bad when you read my Kuwait super chat this evening. This is one of 4 tonight. So look for my other 3. There you go. Appreciate it. Are you pulling a prank on me? So I didn't do this. It wasn't me. Our senior prank, we released 3 pigs into the school, and we numbered them 1, 2, and 4, and they kept looking for number 3 because they thought that there was 4 pigs. So I don't know what you're doing, if you're doing the same thing to me on Super Chats tonight, Rick, but I'm watching you. Will Hoyle, good to see you, sir. He says, hey, Jake, how's it going? So when the reverse carry trade happens, do you think it will happen in layers, or you think it will happen all at once? I think they're going to rip the Band-Aid off, and this is going to be, if the goal is for this to be the catalyst that forces stuff to shift, it's not going to be a layered approach. They're going to pull the Band-Aid off. It is going to be catastrophic. In the short term, they're going to roll liquidity into XRP, and then they'll be able to kind of save the day with this asset and this new technology, moving it to T+0 or real-time settlement to be able to drive velocity of money in the economy. It also helps Warsh could do what he wants to do, which is lower interest rates and also reduce M2 money supply. If you have the velocity of money picking up substantially, you don't need as much money in the economy. And you would also be able to offset that by bringing interest rates down to be able to allow people to move money, refinance homes, purchase more things, issue more currency from the banks because people will be borrowing money again, and drive GDP in the economy. You're going to have to be issuing credit and debt to build out AI at scale. If they removed credit and debt from the market and just went straight to an asset-backed system without any of those components, it would, that's not the right word, I don't want to say that. It would truncate how quickly we could continue to pour gas on AI to get it to a level where it could be used at scale. The infrastructure that's required, the energy that's required, there's so many things that require a lot of money in order to be able to facilitate. We're seeing that now with how much money they're raising with OpenAI and Anthropic and the like. But all that being said, I do think it's going to be a one-time thing. I don't think it's going to be a layered approach here. Amongst Us says Brownberg Mastermind. Awesome. Glad to see you. I was wondering what price you think XRP will pull back to in the short term reverse carry trade unwinds before it rebounds. Thanks for all that you do. Don't know. I have no idea. It could go to 0 when the money stops moving before it's reborn. A lot of people talked about the Phoenix rising, some stuff like that happening. I don't know. Could it go straight up from here? Sure. Does it go up from here and then pull back? Possible. All I can tell you is it's going to be volatile, and that's why you're in crypto, right? Volatility can be awesome if it's to the upside, and it can be not so awesome if it's to the downside. But if you can ride the volatility for the long-term outcome, which again I have a strong opinion on, I'm not the end-all be-all. You should watch a bunch of people, make your own decisions. But we got other people that have buy orders at $1.80. Some people have said 50 cents. I don't know. I just continue to dollar cost average. We're actually also rolling out a product that's not available quite yet, August 1st, which I think may be too late. My team disagrees with me on that, whatever. But a dollar cost averaging product for XRP, where you can park cash at Digital Wealth Partners. This is available to all clients, and it averages you into the market based on an algorithmic trading strategy and candles over 4 different time frames to help get you the best price for averaging into the market. So if that sounds like something cool that you would like to have, where you don't have to think about buying it, it's just cash sat there that gets deployed opportunistically in the market through an algorithm, that's a great product, I think. Now, is it a little late? Maybe. Could it be applied to HBAR, XLM, XDC, all these other digital assets that I think may take a little bit longer to see the adoption curve? Yeah, we have the same capability to do. We could even do it with Bitcoin or ETH or Solana or whatever people wanted. We just had a lot of interest for XRP, and most people move cash in and buy XRP with it on a regular basis if they work with Digital Wealth Partners. So we thought, okay, this will be the first one we do, and then we'll get to the other ones as well. But you can go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us form, talk to them if you have at least 50,000 XRP. And I've been informed that we no longer have the $100,000 minimum across your crypto portfolio. It's now $500,000. I've said 100 for a long time now, past when I was supposed to be. If I will say this, if you reached out and we had a conversation with you during that promotional period, and you have some form of communication from that time frame, we would still be able to honor that amount. So even if you said, hey, don't quite have this yet, but I'm working on it, and you wanted to circle back now because you do have it, they might be able to work something out for you over there. And I'm probably going to get my hand slapped by compliance for saying that. But I literally just want to help as many people as we can, make sure their assets are secured, held in institutional custody, whether it's with us or somebody else. There are other people that provide good products out there. I think we have the best one. I'm biased. Take it with a grain of salt. But I legitimately believe that this is going to change people's lives, just like many people have said tonight. And making sure that it's secured and protected for your family, I think should be a high priority for people. And we want to be there for them. Wherever, good to see you. He says, Jake or she, I don't know. They come on here frequently. I really do appreciate their super chats and their questions. They say they also go a little tinfoil hat for me, which I don't mind. What's your top 7 if XRP is first and HBAR is second, position for XLM and the rest highest to lowest? Top 7. Let me think what I think the total market cap and long-term outlook, and I'm not going to be good. I'm not going to be perfect on this, so I'm going to miss. There's probably something that I'm going to completely miss, and there's probably going to be other ones that don't even make it. But I'll give it to you what I have. And then the next question he has is Mayan calendar. I like the day at a time, but I think the night of Sunday, 7/26, even more, celebrating a new life. Wink, wink. Harmonic calendar, day out of time is 7/25. It's also carousel day. I don't know. 7/13 looks interesting. We'll see if there's anything to that. It also lines up with some other dates on some other calendars. But back to the first question here. Top 7. I'm going to go top 7 by 2030. You called my first two. So XRP number 1 via market cap, number 2 HBAR, number 3 probably XLM, number 4 it's hard. I think that there's going to be something that comes out of left field that is new and innovative that involves AI in some capacity. That's probably in the top 4. 5, I'm going to say maybe even Chainlink, top 5 in 2030, just because I think there's going to be a lot of people leveraging CCIP and using it as an oracle. And I think there's going to be a lot of volume and integrations for that network. There already are. This person says Hyperliquid. If they maintain their status as the number 1 perps trading platform, I could see that. But I also, I really have a hard time understanding the demand for that token outside of the corporation itself, right? They've issued this token. People that hold it they're not able to get additional benefits participating in their platform. So there's no additional demand beyond them generating profits for the company and then buying back the token and then burning them. Flare's another good one. Algorand, possibly in the top 7. The last 4 to 7 are kind of blurry for me. XDC is probably in there within the top 7. So XDC, I think people kind of limit that to trade finance, but it's really any document that could have value to be traded on the market. That's what that network's built for. So warrants, bonds, bill of lading, obviously, your receivables can be tokenized and sold on that. If you think about the largest markets, okay, so we could probably break it down by that, actually a little bit easier, and then you could pick which token you thought was going to accomplish or facilitate the trade of those markets. So you got derivatives, number 1, outsized, higher than everything else. And I made a whole video on this, on which tokens already have traction in each one of these things. I think it's about a year ago, where I talked about, and this was the first time I found Hash also, because I think Hash could be a top 7. It really needs to start getting traction if that's going to be the case. But I think there's a possibility with Mike Cagney's position at Figure and Provenance's blockchain. I'm going to throw it in there. I'm going to say the last 3, 4, I don't have a position. I think there's one wild card that I don't even know yet, maybe 2, Hash, XDC, and then I don't even know that Flare is going to be in the top 7. I would love it to be. Because I think that'd be a huge arbitrage and an opportunity for people, because it's super cheap right now, similar to Hash, super cheap in comparison to the capabilities and promise that it might have. There's a person keeps saying Telcoin. Ton. I don't know. I like it, but I don't know if it's going to be top 7. ICP, I won't say I have a hard time with. I view it kind of as a competitor to HBAR in a lot of ways, just because I think that the majority of dApps end up on Hashgraph, and that's kind of what they're going after. Tau, SWI, ADA. I don't think Cardano is going to be in the top 7 in 2030. I don't think Tau is going to be in the top 7 in 2030. I don't think SWE is going to be in the top 7 in 2030, or Ondo or Quant. Ondo is more of a both Quant and Ondo and Wormhole or W token are more like governance tokens. They're used to pay fees on the network in order to participate. They don't necessarily move value on the network itself. And so that's kind of my determining factor on whether a token is actually going to receive the amount of liquidity that would push it to a significantly higher price. You look at total addressable market or the market cap of whatever problem they're trying to solve, and then how much liquidity based on the tokenomics would be required in order to facilitate that value transfer. I think that the value transfer tokens are going to have outsized returns in comparison to governance tokens, or tokens that their demands only driven by the necessity to pay fees to participate on a network, not actually driving utility of the network itself. So, and who knows what the outcomes are going to be. It could end up being that, and people aren't going to like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, that there's so much consolidation. I'm still an advocate that I think there'll be 3 to 5 base layer networks, but there is going to be one network that gets the lion's share of everything, and I think that's going to be the XRPL because of the regulatory infrastructure that they've created with the amendments on the network and its institutional adoption. All the money. I don't think that's a joke. Now, there's a lot of other things for tokenized reward assets. There's insurance. There's so many other things that need specific smart contract capabilities and industry expertise in order to be able to do it the right way. That I think will have niche places in the Proppy is another one that I think will be around. Natalia does great with that. Tokenization of titles and deeds for properties. That's another huge total addressable market if they ever were able to actually get governments to make sure that people were moving that stuff on chain. I don't think that that's going to be by 2030, though. I think that it's going to be climbing. I think it's going to be doing good, but I don't know that it's going to be in the top 7. This person says Canton Network. That's another one where I'm like, governance token, pay fees on the network. It's not for moving value. So I just have a hard time with that. My wife says she did bring me tea before her and my son, did the roundabout. DAG. I love Ben. I love Constellation. Shout out to Constellation. The whole company was recently acquired by AI Squared out of Dallas. It's a family office in Dallas. And I think they've gone public if you guys want to go look them up. They're looking to be kind of like a Berkshire Hathaway of AI. So they have a bunch of different investments across multiple companies. And by buying their stock, you are buying the company that has the controlling interest in all those subsidiaries. So if you wanted to invest in DAG the token, obviously you can. And again, this is not an endorsement of a security. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just talking through a relationship that I have that I became aware of the other day that is more of a picks and shovels play on AI with using the metadata oracle Constellation and the token DAG. So if you want to go check out that stock, that's up to you. It's your prerogative. I'm not advocating for investment in it. I just had a conversation the other day, so figured I'd mention on here. All right. We are an hour in, and I have not got through very many super chats. So we are probably not going to wrap up a little early tonight. I'm just going to try to get through the rest of the super chats. Appreciate you, Nick, my man, for the super chat. If you have not submitted a super chat yet, I'm not going to get to it. If you submit it after this, you can always email it to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and my team will get it over to me, and we'll read it next Monday. All right. Scroll back up here and see if I can grab some more of these. This is super random, but I wanted to throw this out here. I learned this when I worked at the bank when I was 19 years old, and most of you are probably going to know this. It's a hotkey on the keyboard. If you want to switch windows on your computer, you can hit Alt Tab, and it'll shift windows very quickly. So like, if you're on Facebook while you're supposed to be working at the bank and you want your other screen up there, you just Alt Tab real quick when your supervisor walks in. Anyway, I still use it now. So just throwing that out there, probably not what you guys were looking for coming here, but I find it useful. Atlas TA says, hey, Jake, do you see XRP as a short-term solution, less than 5 years, that will be replaced with a new, better, cheaper option? Sorry for your loss. Thank you for the kind words, the condolences. No. The reason for that, take a sip of my coffee or my tea. It's already been trialed for 14 years in the background. I think it's actually much longer than that. If you go look up Ryan Fruger in Canada, if you want to go back to OpenCoin, if you want to look at David Schwartz, distributed ledger technology, and blockchain patents that he filed back in the late 1980s when he was working for the NSA, I think this has been a long time coming. I think it's been a very methodically planned, orchestrated, under people's noses outcome that has been battle tested. I'll say this too, which again, tinfoil hat, you can wear it if you want to. But a couple conversations that I've had with people. I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with Greg Kidd, but he kind of championed this on an interview with DAI years ago. Shout out to DAI. He said that he views XRP as an intergalactic currency. And he's into Star Trek, and love Greg Kidd for that. There's been some other conversations where people couldn't say a whole lot, but they use the term out of this world when describing XRP and the XRPL. So take that as you will, whatever you think that means. But if this is the network that is the intergalactic currency, and that the rest of whatever else is out there operates on, and this is our upgrade to that network, you'd have to replace, like, again, you're going to have to run with me on my tinfoil hat here, but you'd have to replace it across the galaxy. It's not just like one jurisdiction or one state or just even one world. If it allows us to be interoperable with and have interplanetary commerce with other humans or whatever else is out there, no, not in any way would that be replaced within 5 years. Whatever is adopted, whether that's XRP or not, I think it will be, but whatever is adopted, you can see how long it takes for legacy systems that are in place to be removed. I mean, if you look at Bretton Woods and the dollar coming into power, we're looking at least another 80 to 100 years if currency cycles maintain the current frequency of change. This is a supranational currency that sits between all of those, which, I think probably like a $2,000, not $2,000, well, maybe $2,000, 2,000-year cycle is kind of what I think we're coming to here. So to say it would be replaced in less than 5 years, I view as highly unlikely. There are better things than the XRPL out there today. If you want to consider throughput as the main KPI that you're looking at, Holochain and other blockchains have significantly higher throughput than the XRPL, but they compromise some security, they compromise downtime, smart contract integrity, their ability to be implemented in institutional applications because of the governance that's built onto those networks is different. I view XRP and the XRPL as the perfect, orchestrated solution for all of this. And again, I'm just one guy. Do not invest based on anything I say. Go look at other people, talk with your financial advisor, make your own investment decisions. Do not just run out and buy XRP because Jake said so, because that's silly. DFW Mike says, good evening, Jake and the Tea Lady. Banging meetup inbound. Awesome wealth holding discussions in the Constitution thread. Mastermind learning Masterminds learn do teach model is a plethora of pertinent information. The mods Rock, Honest Aim, and Dynasty Dan putting down truths tonight. They did great last night over there in the Carbon 2 chat. Had a lot of good response from that. So again, I appreciate all the mods. I appreciate everybody who works the DAG. I appreciate everybody that is wild to be a part of something where, again, I am not the end all be all. I don't have all the answers, but so many people with domain expertise and decades of experience have reached out and wanted to work with us because they can see the opportunity. They can see how much of an impact they can make, and they can see how many people are going to need help on the other side of this, and they want to be a part of it. So just, I feel super blessed and grateful for all of the wonderful moderators and the employees that we currently have at Digital Ascension Group. So shout out. I don't ever say it publicly enough. I'm very grateful. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. If you guys want to participate in what he was talking about, you want to learn more, you want to be proactive, you want to make sure that you are ahead of the curve when it comes to all this stuff. If you really do believe it's going to be life-changing for you, then I would consider, not telling you to do it, consider joining the mastermind. 17,000 people there, don't regret it. They continue to participate month after month. There is no contract. It's month to month. You can leave at any time. Some people have financial issues. Some people don't like Discord. We're not a perfect fit for everybody. But I will say, I know that the value that we provide in this community is higher than any other mastermind that I have ever been a part of. And I'm proud to say that. And I have paid a lot of money to be part of other masterminds. And I would say we provide more value in just the social level of the mastermind than other masterminds that I have paid $30,000 to $50,000 to be a part of. So take that as you will. But we would love to have you in there before price appreciation if you feel compelled to do so. It's $2 to try it out. If you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar at the end, or abbreviation for month. All that's capitalized at beyondbroke.com. Go check it out. We are going to be upgrading the websites here soon, and it's going to have some additional functionality. Max Avery has been cranking over there with Fable, and excited to be able to roll that out for you guys here in the near future. So again, if you want to get on board and participate in that as it rolls out, I would do it now. Kelly Beeston, they say Carbon won for 4+ years. Dude, or ma'am. I'm assuming dude. Been in XRP for 2+ years. I know you're right. I see it too. Just want to say thank you because I know it's not easy. I'm a horse gal too. Okay, so Kelly is a lady, and would love to ride with the Tea Lady someday. God bless you and your family. Thank you, ma'am. We started the mastermind. It'll be 4 years in January. She probably was listening to me on Twitter before it ever became the mastermind, which is very cool. So I appreciate you and the support and participating in the community and being a light for the community and letting others know, what's coming. It's been an awesome ride, and I think it's only going to get better. I'm excited about the impact that we're going to be able to make in the community, not just from the investments that we make, but the philanthropic stuff that comes along with that. My wife has a lot of things that she wants to do as an equestrian, and I would be guessing that you do too. So that'll be really cool to see what all we can put together to make an impact for people in the sport, because it is waning. There's not anywhere near as many rodeos. I was actually just talking to my wife earlier. Another honky tonk here in Texas shut down. Gen Z they don't go out two-stepping and line dancing and doing all that stuff, which is sad because I really enjoyed that in my 20s, and I know my wife did too. So maybe there'll be something that we do on that side as well. JLT, the juggernaut. I say, besides an LLC trust, any other ways to reduce taxes? There are lots of ways to reduce taxes. Work with a tax attorney and an estate planner to make sure you're taking advantage of everything that you possibly can on business expenses. There are gray areas that you need documentation for if you're going to be, using those exemptions for when you file your taxes. I'm hopeful that, just like everybody else, that we get no capital gains tax on crypto. I don't know that that's going to be the case though. So, some easy ones. I'll just throw out some easy ones. The Augusta rule. Okay, so if you have a family board meeting, your family members participate in the business in some capacity. If they're on the board or they're employees, you can rent your home up to 14 times a year to your business at a fair and equitable value based on what other homes in the same style home or venue rent for in your area. And you can pay that money to yourself, tax-free. Another one, section 7, is it 709? This is the tax form. 709 is the gift form. I don't know. Heavy vehicle, heavy equipment, and software. The number, the code escapes me at the moment. But vehicles over 6,000 pounds can be written off. A large portion of those, as long as Trump's in office, it's probably going to be 100%. But even after he leaves office, Biden was looking and made it where it was like 50% in the first year that you can write off. So if you are going to buy something to go meet people in or go view properties or look at investments on a regular basis, you need a normal vehicle that your family drives, and you do have to document the mileage on the vehicle that you're using and for what purpose. But that is another really big ticket way to be able to write things off. Cost seg on properties or investment on properties. Opportunity zones. We have a couple people that were talking in Carbon 2 just a few weeks ago about investing in opportunity zones. Section 179. Thank you. I don't know why I was thinking 709. 709 is the tax form. It's the gift form that you have to file with the IRS when you give things out of your personal estate. Section 179 of the tax code is for the heavy equipment. If you buy a farm and you buy a tractor, it's another good one. What else? The cost seg. Here's one that's really interesting I learned about the other day. It's called legacy soil depreciation. So if you're buying large swaths of land like Bezos and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, you can use legacy soil depreciation and pull forward a lot of the depreciation on raw land. There's tons. The only thing that I would stay away from or be cautious of, because it's not always bad, there are legitimate tax credits. But anybody selling you tax credits, have your attorney look over it, or your tax or estate planner, just to verify things. There are legitimate ones out there. I will say that. But in the past, I've been approached by people that are selling tax credits that it works for a while, and then the IRS tends to catch up with those. It could even work for up to a decade while they compile a bunch of evidence against it before they come after people, and then you owe back taxes and fees when they overturn it. Just be careful if you're going to play in that area. There are legitimate ones, but make sure that you're working with credible counterparties and you've done your own due diligence with your advisors before taking advantage of purchasing. Like a lot of them will say, invest this much money and you're able to write off more than that amount. Most of those are not true. Sometimes they sell at a discount, and then you're able to take the full amount of the exemption or the credit. I don't know. I stay away from most of that stuff just because I don't want, um, I never want our clients to be exposed to something that we had an oversight on, and we're probably a bit more conservative on things sometimes than, as an example, there was a gentleman that brought me stuff the other day. I wanted to entertain it. I wanted to believe it, but we have certain rules about certain levels of returns on stuff with our group, where if it's over a certain amount, we just say, nope, it's out of our risk tolerance. It's not worth the reputational risk if this ends up being something that is not legitimate. And you got to weigh that out for yourself too, right? So we're probably, as we progress here, there are going to be groups out there that have return profiles that exceed what we're looking at. And we will operate on the aggressive side, but we will do a ton of due diligence and make sure that if you are going to participate in that, maybe it's outside the scope of what we offer, but you at least understand the risks when you're making an allocation. And that's the benefit of working with our group, on the advisory side. David, he says, mastermind member, future DAG client. Awesome, dude. Glad to be working with you in the future and appreciate you being part of the mastermind. He says, is Zaman a safe place to earn yield until I can use DAG as a client? God bless you and your family. Love those guys over there. Love Weedsay, love Hugo, love Flair, love Doppler, love Axelar. We love, I haven't met the Soul guys yet, so I can't advocate for them. I don't know one way or the other. But all the other ones, great people, great products, great solutions. Our concern with that is that they are unregistered securities offering because they're pooled vehicles and there are no subscription agreements. There's no PPM. They're being offered to non-accredited individuals on a public basis, which would violate securities laws here in the US. Most people have to use a VPN in order to participate because they've geofenced the US for that reason. People are going to do it. Doesn't matter what I say or what the government says. I know that. I think that they have done all of those that I mentioned, caveat soil, because I have not talked to them yet, have done a really good job building their brand and credibility and standing in the community. And I don't think they would jeopardize that. So, and they want to do things the right way. I've talked to all of them. They want to do it the right way. They just aren't sure what the right way is. And it's difficult to do things the right way inside of a DeFi environment without institutional adoption. So they're doing the best with what they have, which we are too, right? That's the same reason we haven't launched a yield product yet, is there are just so many constraints and regulatory hurdles and counterparties and counterparty risk that we want things done a very specific way. And until we have enough liquidity in XRP to command that things are done the way that we want them to, which I don't think will take a whole lot longer, people are going to continue to believe that they have the leverage in these conversations and push back on certain things. So anyway, all that to say, I think Zaman's a great place to keep and hold your XRP long-term. I wasn't overly excited that they put the 1% fee over a certain amount of moving XRP in and out of those wallets, but they have to make money, right? They've got to be able to. For a long time, they offered it for free, operated at a loss. I think Weedsay has done a lot of good things and services for the XRP family, and I think he has a really good product, and it's probably justified the fees that he's charging at this point. And it's not even him; it's Zaman. It's a corporation, right? That would be my only gripe. And I think, I can't really gripe too much because we also charge for our services. That's how capitalism works. So yeah, I think it's a safe place. Yield stuff, if you are going to do it, make sure you understand the risks, is all I would say. Make sure you've had conversations with the counterparty that you're participating with, and you've asked about how the assets are custodied, what the counterparty risk is, what they're using to generate the returns, the risk on the strategy, how are they mitigating all of those risks, smart contract risk for exploits and hacks. There's not going to be any insurance on it, I can tell you that right now. All those things, right? Those are all questions that you should ask. And then based on those answers, you could determine how much of your portfolio are you willing to risk for that return with all of those risks involved, if they are risks at all. All right. I'm definitely not going to make it through all the super chats tonight. I already know. Doing my best. To the Moon says, if we were in Carbon One for a minute and looking to tighten down, would you drop to general or hold out because you will have the money to pay for it? Do what's best for you in your financial situation. Even if you needed to take a step back from the community for a little while, just because your finances are tight. I don't want to I'm going to say it. If you have ever been part of the community and you weren't banned because you weren't abiding by community guidelines, we would be happy to have you back, even if you had to drop out for a period of time. We have had people step down their membership to different tiers to make sure that they're still able to get, access to the town halls and all the other great information we provide in there. And then they plan on, moving back up later. But if you are in the mastermind, if you stay in the mastermind, the fees are going to stay the same for everybody that's there right now. Anybody that is new, that is coming in after price appreciation, will have to pay substantially higher fees in order to participate in the community, and will have to go through a much stricter onboarding process than what it is today. So just, do whatever's best for you and your family. If you need to tighten down on expenses right now and drop back to social, or even pause your membership, we're happy to have you back as long as you've always been a good community member. So thank you for being part of the community and seeing the value that we provide. And again, it's month to month, no contract. We want people, if they have the disposable income and they see the value in it, both those things, then we would love to have you there in the group. And again, you can go put in the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. Get yourself the first month for $2 to try it out. The Crazy Goat, they say, hey Jake, thanks for putting up with the same questions week after week. Post price appreciation, do you think the exchanges and banks will collude in making it difficult to off-ramp our profits, possibly make new rules or restrictions? They make money on trades. I think their models will shift on the other side of price appreciation and regulations moving in. I think that they're probably going to need broker-dealer licenses. They may need commodity pool trading licenses. There's definitely going to be some regulatory oversight that comes on the exchanges. And I do think that there's going to be a huge consolidation of banks and institutions acquiring exchanges. As long as their incentive is in the trading, I don't see why they would have a problem with you off-ramping. And that's also why we've created the solution that we have. We're never going to tell people that you can't take your stuff out. Our caveat, I will say this, some of the financial products that we offer, we explain the lockup periods upfront in the documentation when you're participating in those opportunities. And we make them far less than any other funds that are out there. Most funds that you're going to participate in private investments are going to be at least a 1-year lockup. You can't pull your money out for a minimum of 1 year. I think ours are like 45 days. Yeah, I think 45 days is our notice period. And we do redemptions on a quarterly basis, which is way more than anybody else in the industry. Now, I know, and I'm the same way, like I want it to be DeFi. I want to be able to put my money in and pull it out anytime I want to do it. There are some staking protocols and other stuff that have cool off periods for like 20 days or something. We'll get there. Once things are at scale and there's liquidity pools. But even then, and I made a video about this that you guys will see here in the next couple weeks, I think there's going to be restrictions on these liquidity pools and other DeFi. Once they come under regulatory scrutiny and there's oversight in them, there needs to be emergency breakers and stuff, just like you have in the stock market. If everybody's trying to pull their money out all at once because of an emotional state that people are in, which is normal, by the way, there needs to be somebody that's accountable that looks at the pool, is able to lock things down, fix whatever the problem is, and then have a protocol or procedure for restarting everything. And again, I know that's not DeFi. People want access to their stuff all the time, but you also want the safety, right? There's been a lot of rug pulls and huge losses in DeFi that have not been, nobody's been held accountable for. So you need the accountability, but with the accountability comes some control from the counterparty that's going to be accountable in that situation. And I don't want it to be an overlord or centralization or any of that. But at the same time, I personally would like some of the protections that stuff provides. So I think it'll be somewhere in the middle when they regulate all this. So if you want to say that is them colluding to make it difficult for you to take profits or off ramp, there will be some more frictions. I will concede that. I think that there will be some more frictions in some of the products and solutions that are out there. But just buying and selling and moving your stuff, at least for us, I can tell you on our side, if anybody is in our infrastructure and they say, hey, want my stuff out, we say, cool. We have a 24-hour SLA with Anchorage. They tend to be much faster than that, but that is the SLA that's in place. And that's also good too, because if there is a breach or hack or issue, that gives us time to catch it before it's a problem and stuff is gone. And people don't think about that. When they want their stuff, they want their stuff. And I'm the same way. But in the same breath, kind of like when my bank calls me and they're like, hey, did you do this? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, we just wanted to check and make sure. And I'm like, I appreciate you guys trying to prevent the fraud. It is me that's taking this action. You want that, right? Because there may be a time when it's not you, and you're like, what do you mean that happened? And they can freeze funds or keep stuff from leaving their infrastructure. So anyway, I think there's going to be a middle road, but I do think there's going to be some additional frictions in there, but I don't think it's going to be malicious. Chris Burns, good to see you. They say, Jake, in the mastermind, there is a tech guy that's very knowledgeable and says XRP update is not ready, but very close. Your thoughts? He's right. We currently sit at, I think it was like 15 votes. If you want to go to xrpscan.com/amendments, you can see where the cleanup fix 3.2.0 is. It's currently at 19 votes. We need 29 votes in order for that to get passed and implemented. And there is a 2-week holding period for them to check on bugs and make sure that everybody upgrades before they implement it. So even if things got expedited, we're not going to see that amendment get pushed through and then liquidity pools and borrow lend and the other stuff until probably August at the earliest. That doesn't mean that we couldn't see price appreciation. They've also reworked batch payments for the XRPL. And that will be another proposed amendment on the other side of the cleanup and fix, the 3.2.0 version being put out. So is there there? Does it keep things from moving forward? Possible. But if we do have an implicit or explicit subnet like the one that Bob Way patented with Ripple many years ago, that could be used to facilitate much higher throughput on the XRPL if there's a higher price, just the settlement piece works just fine. All of these additional smart contract components take a little longer, but we already have digital identity, we already have credentials, we already have permission domains, and we already have permission dexes. And that piece alone is huge. That puts the XRPL above and beyond any other network out there for institutional adoption for payments and settlement for the back end of markets. So it's up to you. You decide if that's required before we see some price appreciation. I personally don't think that's the case for all the reasons I just mentioned. Edward, Rebecca Waltzer said in another podcast that publishing the budget and spending on blockchain will be the end of the corrupt U.S. politician. Could this be why the Clarity Act is delayed? Oh boy. Quite possibly. They didn't pass the SAVE Act. How wild is that? Like, you want there to be a possibility for voter fraud. And again, I don't keep up with a ton of politics. It doesn't affect, outside of the stuff for crypto, it doesn't necessarily affect our business and my life. I might be missing something on the SAVE Act. There may be something else there and reasons why they didn't pass it the way that it was written. And I could be completely ignorant. Okay. But the premise behind it, I think, is that they don't want duplicate votes for people through mail and coming in person, or dead people being able to vote, or illegals being able to vote. Not to say that an illegal couldn't get an ID or manufacture an ID and present that and be able to vote. Okay. There's still going to be people that game the system. It's not going to matter what we do. People are people. But if you had a digital identity and it was on blockchain and it was verified by a biometric or multiple biometrics and a multi authenticator like you have on your phone from Microsoft or Google or whatever, if you had that many steps in order to be able to verify your identity and it was a zero knowledge proof, and you had a ton, like, I don't know if you guys ever used Global ID before they kind of discontinued what they currently had with Uphold years ago when they had the credit card. It was actually a debit card, but it would, you could spend your crypto. In their portal, you verified your ID with 3 different counterparties. You verified all the other information about yourself with multiple counterparties. And when you went to present that information to another counterparty, they would only present them with whatever information was required. And they would share a hash on the blockchain. And it was a zero knowledge proof beyond that. So I think that's where we're headed. I think they trained people for that with American Idol, to vote on your cell phone. They filed a blockchain voting patent with the post office in 2000 in Trump's first presidency. So high probability that you are all over the target there, that there are certain individuals that understand that there are, because it's ambiguous and difficult to see everything and not transparent, and this would bring all the light to that, they don't want that to happen. Roughing It, good to see you, ma'am. She says, sorry for your loss. Thank you. Thank you for the condolences. I hope they were a believer. They were. They're in a better place. So Swift has come out and said, which is actually not new news, that November 14th, the coexistence period is over for ISO 20022 Curious what your thoughts are on this. Thank you. So ISO 20022 is a messaging standard. It doesn't have anything to do with settlement. That's a common misconception that a lot of people have had, and a misnomer that people have said there's these ISO tokens for a long time. And I always explained that it's a messaging standard that is the precursor or prelude to the ability to start settling real time. The majority of everybody has already transferred over at this point. Beginning last year was the hard cut over. I believe they were at like 97% adoption rate. What that is the thing that I could provide an analogy for that I think most people would understand is a shipping container. Doesn't matter what port you go to in the world, doesn't matter what train you get on, doesn't matter what ship you get on, they're all built to use the same shipping container. You could go to Tokyo, Japan, you could go to Hong Kong, China, you could go to India, you could go to the Strait of Hormuz, you could go to the West Coast here on the US, you could go to the Gulf of America. Any of those ports are all going to have the same equipment in order to be able to facilitate the transfer of those containers that house whatever they hold. That's kind of what ISO is. It's a standardized messaging layer that everybody adheres to so that they don't have to reconcile data. If everybody had different equipment and different infrastructure in order to be able to support logistics, we wouldn't have a globalized logistics. The shipping would not be able to work at scale the way that it does. And that's the friction that we've experienced in payments for a long time on the messaging component is everybody had their data structured in a different way based on how they held that in their ecosystem. And when they sent it to somebody else, they received it and it's out of order for whatever they have in their system. So they got to reconcile it. Takes them some time to do that. And then they can finally settle after that reconciles. Now that they've removed that friction, everything's streamlined on this side for the messaging. They can now move to a system where we do have instant settlement because there's no reconciliation. Same thing with the DTCC. They've moved to back-end reconciliation, and now they're going to be implementing settlement. It's one before the other, but they are mutually exclusive. So, I think it's highly probable that they could roll out instant settlement prior to that date, for sure. Prompt Thumbpad 68. They say, legend. What's up, dude? De-risk twin asset in situ gold palladium structure, ownership, registration, and mining titles leading to 43-101 certificate for tokenization monetization. Who can I contact at DHE to see about an SPV or trust, etc. as possible? More XRP with success. There's a lot there that I don't understand, probably because I'm not a commodities trader and that's not my background. I would reach, so this is going to be way out of left field. If you could get connected with Jimmy Valley, he has a business partner that I got to meet when we had the get together down in Houston years ago. That was a 30-year commodities trader that understood all the tokenization and the XRPL and everything else. I want to say his name was Scott. But if you could reach out to Jimmy Valley and ask for an intro to Scott, based on what you just said there, I think he would be compelled to make that intro. And again, like if you're in the mastermind, there's a lot of people in there that know a lot of people. We have a pretty deep network, a deep bench of people. And if you ask questions like that and you say, hey, I have this idea, or I have this person that I know that's doing this, do you have anybody that could help them accomplish that? We've been in the industry long enough. 95% of the time, there's probably 1 out of 20 that I don't have anybody. But 19 out of 20 times, I'm like, I got you. I know at least one introduction that we can make for you if you're there in the group. Mike, my man, good to see you again. We already did this one. Appreciate you on the super chat. And I just want to shout out DFW Mike. He hosts a lot of really good events here in Dallas. If you are part of the mastermind, go check those out. He puts on some good stuff. Anthony, he says, Beyond Work Mastermind, Carbon 2, awesome dude. DAG client, glad to be working with you. Good to see you, man. He says, what's your opinion when you would start a trust versus buying more XRP? Married, 50 years old. XRP is basically my whole wealth, besides primary residence. How much XRP should we have to start a trust? This can be different for everybody, but as a good rule, I wouldn't even say it's an amount. It depends on how quickly you think it's going to move and to what amount. Okay, so if you think we're going to $100 for a little while, and the amount that you have at that point is going to put you over the gift tax threshold, which is 30 million between you and your spouse here in the U.S. Other jurisdictions are going to be different. I'm just going to speak to U.S. clients and people that are domestic here in the U.S. for a moment, because it sounds like Anthony is. You do the math on that. If you're going to be over that threshold at whatever price you think it's going to go to in short order, that's when I would start the trust and look at gifting at least a portion of it out of your taxable estate prior to the price appreciation. Because you're going to be able to gift it out at a much lower price now than you would be, post price appreciation. Erratic movement and volatility, like I personally feel like we're going to experience with XRP, is not the norm in other markets. Most tax attorneys and estate planners are conservative by nature, which you want them to be, and they're fiduciaries, and they're going to look at your situation and say, you probably wait. It's probably going to be a slow grow. And even if it escalates quickly, it's not going to be to the level where you need to gift it out immediately, and you're going to have time to set this stuff up and gift it out before you get to a problem area. And you might think that if that's your thesis, don't worry about it right now. But if you do believe that there's going to be a snapback moment where they need liquidity in XRP in order to be able to navigate certain circumstances playing out, and you come to whatever conclusion on what price you think is most likely. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I think 3 or 4 digits, you pick whatever number you're comfortable with. If that number is over 30 million with the current allocation that you have, that would be the time when I would start considering a trust. All right. Kelly again. Oh, we just did this one. My battery is running low on my phone. It is probably going to die before, well, it might make it. It might make it on TikTok over there. Actually, I think I may have gotten through the super chats because I'm back up to ones that we read a little bit earlier. All right, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom because I know people didn't listen and they put some more super chats in here, and I know I'm going to miss some. You know what? I just want to stop and say thank you guys for taking the time out and asking good questions. I will say, since my little soapbox a couple weeks ago about providing context on questions and asking good questions for good answers, you guys have done fantastic, by the way. I've had very few people come on here and just ask when moon, and other people have asked about health things and AI and different stocks and macro and market conditions and taxes and estate planning. And they've given really good, this is my age, this is my situation, this is what I'm looking for. I'm able to dig in and give you something that you might be able to use. If it's ambiguous and doesn't provide much information, it's hard for me to even give a good answer. So again, just want to applaud you guys for the questions over the last few weeks, and all the people that keep coming back and asking them. Good to see you, sir. He says, hey, Jake, hope you and the family are well. We're good. Funerals aren't fun, but part of life. As you mentioned earlier, XRP don't need clarity. That's what he said. Why big institutions not adopting XRP then? Why are they still waiting for crypto to pass, or clarity to pass? What's your estimate on availability of XRP in dark pools? So it's not the regulatory confines that people are having a waiting on. It is liquidity and volatility of the asset. And David Schwartz even came out and said this. People asked him the same question, and he said, actually, it's not clarity that they're waiting on. Most of the institutions don't want to hold a volatile asset. And until it's a high stable price, there's going to be too much volatility and risk associated with holding this on their balance sheet that they're not comfortable with. So they need to drive liquidity into it. Once there's enough liquidity in it, it's a high stable value because of the volume moving over the network. You're going to see mass adoption at scale. They're cool at this point with the regulatory component around XRP. They're just not cool with the volatility and the low liquidity that it currently has in the state that it exists. So that is the piece. And then what's in the dark pools? There's consistently around 100 million XRP or 200 million XRP in the dark pools and the OTC desks. As long as Ripple continues to sell onto the market at the beginning of every month in order to fund their business, that's going to continue to be the case. I don't make any bones about that. Other people will come poo-poo it and say that, they're just confiscating the wealth from the retail holders and they're never going to let it appreciate and blah, 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 blah. I don't think people understand order of actions. Sometimes, as an example, this is a good one. Amazon lost money for the first 12 years that it was in business. It was not a profitable investment. Now, if you own the stock, maybe you made some money, but the company itself didn't pay dividends. There was no money left because they rolled it all back in on growing. I view Ripple the same way. They're profitable enough to pay their employees well, but the majority of the net worth of their employees and their executives and the founders is wrapped up in Ripple equity. The more valuable they can make that company, the better tax advantage they have. And they've done that by leveraging sales of XRP to make acquisitions, to put themselves in a position to actualize and fulfill the long-term promise of the XRPL and XRP. Without Ripple, and this is where the whole SEC case was kind of right. They have built the infrastructure that makes this successful, but it is an open source protocol and they just leverage that in their business. Have they sold XRP in order to be able to build that business? Absolutely. But it's for the long-term benefit of the ecosystem and the adoption at scale of this. And they want the price to be substantially higher for the purpose I just mentioned, for other institutions to want to hold it and use it and get adoption. So anyway, I went on my tangent there, but yeah, I think, because of the recent sales from Ripple, they're somewhere between 100 and 200 million on the dark pools in the OTC desk, which isn't much if there's a BlackRock ETF and Evernorth goes live. I could eat that up real quick. I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to try it. I appreciate the super chat. They say, thank you for your help and support today. God bless you and yours. God bless you, man. Thank you for the kind words and the super chat. Wish you and your family a lot of prosperity, wisdom, and blessings in the near future. We are about at time, and we got one more here. Tired Man. Love the name because I feel it often. He says, how does the AI bubble popping affect XRP? I think it's a net benefit because of the rotation of capital in the short term. And then also is a net benefit over the long term because of the adoption of agentic payments on the XRPL and volume that's going to move across the network. You're already starting to see that with T54. and other people utilizing the infrastructure in that capacity. So I think it's good on the way down and on the way back up on the other side of it. And I think it's meant to be that way too, a little bit. Nick, appreciate you on the super chat, my brother. He sent a couple of them here. I think I got through all of them. So I may have missed some. If I did miss some super chats, again, I apologize. If all you got to do is email them over to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, my team will get them over to me. I will read them on Monday night next week, because we will continue to do these every Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you liked any of this, if you want to be proactive, if you think some of the solutions I mentioned sound like something you should at least look at, all you got to do is go over to digitalfamilyoffice.io. We can help you with the LLC, getting that set up, managing that, setting up trusts, structuring your estate the right way to make sure that you're able to navigate this and set things up for your family. On the wealth management side, it's currently over at digitalwealthpartners.net. And I'm hoping by Wednesday next week, I'm going to have a really good announcement for you guys. We'll see. And things always take longer than I want them to. But tune in next Wednesday. Maybe Monday too. Depends on when they let me talk about it. Next week. Tune in next week. I'm going to have something really cool for you guys. But as it sits today, digitalwealthpartners.net, you can go to the contact us form there. And then last but not least, you guys know it, the mastermind. We'd love to see you over there before price moves, which again, we talked about the macro at the beginning of this. Everything's lining up. So it's at beyondbroke.com. You can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2. Month to month, no contract, cancel anytime. Come check it out. Post price appreciation is going to be locked down, much more stringent on applications, and much more expensive than it is today. So with that, I'll wrap it. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday night, a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on the next one.